So thus, I found myself riding the LRT in Edmonton last Sunday when I didn't really need to use it to get anywhere. You see, the Edmonton Transit Service, which goes by ETS, put out a statement a little while ago to media outlets that said media would be banned from public transit facilities unless they sought and got permission to go there first. Now, being a unionized gang, of course, you could only get permission from 9 to 5 on weekdays from these guys. So if there were any events that needed coverage and they happened to be happening in the evenings or the weekends, I guess the press wouldn't be allowed to report on it. The requirement's ridiculous. It's a clear violation of freedom of the press. The Canadian Constitution Foundation immediately released a statement saying they're going to take ETS to court if they don't back off on this. Higher-ups within Edmonton City Hall, they scrambled to respond, and they claimed there was no such restriction placed on media. People just misunderstood the statement. Oh, I see. Well, let's have a look at the statement, then I'll read it to you and see if you misunderstand it or not. Here's the statement. It came under the heading, Media on ETS Property. It says media are required, not suggested, to notify the City of Edmonton prior to reporting, filming, or conducting business on ETS property. This includes transit centers, LRT stations, stops along the Valley Line Southeast, and inside all buses or trains. If you wish to gain access to ETS property, please contact blah, blah, blah. How could this be misunderstood? It was pretty clear. They're saying media needs their permission to go on public property and do its job. Now, the reason ETS wants to keep us from reporting on transit property is pretty obvious. As with most major cities, Edmonton's transit systems turned into a dystopian, addict-ridden nightmare. Riding had become unpleasant at best and outright dangerous at worst. Edmonton police at one point even recommended people avoid using transit. Now, like all good bureaucracies, rather than fixing the problem, the first instinct on the part of the pointy-headed little bureaucrats was to cover it up, and that meant banning the press. Former Western Standard reporter Arthur Green used to drive them nuts. He made it a personal mission to expose the addict-fueled mayhem happening in Edmonton's downtown and on the transit systems. He constantly embarrassed ETS as he posted photos and video of some of the horrific scenes happening on transit facilities. Green's photos, they were often actually pretty tough to view as he highlighted the human misery and waste happening on city streets and transit lines, but they needed to be seen. Rest assured, Arthur's work, it was part of what inspired the idiotic attempt by ETS to control the press on public transit. So when I read that ETS statement, my first thought was, who the hell do you guys think you are? And I knew I'd have to put their rules to the test. I mean, the sheer arrogance of these bureaucrats in thinking they could stop media was galling. They likely felt inspired, though, as they've watched the federal government beat on Canada's free press with Bills C-11 and C-18, so why can't civic governments do it too, right? It appeared to some paper pushers it's open season on press rights, and they wanted to pile on. I tweeted out I'd be riding on city transit and live tweeted my actions as I rode on and reported on the conditions on the train and in the facilities. I didn't really expect EDS to do anything about it, and they didn't. Their requirement for permission was just a bluster. Now let's get on to the ironic part of this story. I'm happy to report, actually, when I wrote it, things have actually improved quite a bit on Edmonton transit lines. Yes, I saw addicts. I smelled urine. I saw property damage. I witnessed a seemingly endless line of tents and makeshift shelters built along the line near Stadium Station. They do have some serious issues to deal with. But I also saw a very visible presence of security guards, peace officers, cleaning crews, and police at the stations. I mean, one young lady was being arrested when I went by, but at least they're doing their job. The platforms and the trains were actually relatively clean, despite the smell, and efforts were being made to keep it so. Now, it was a Sunday afternoon. I might have been seeing things at their best, but all the same, ETS and Edmonton authorities were clearly trying to keep transit safe and clean. Now, if I'd been blocked from going on transit, or if I'd listened to them, I wouldn't have been able to report this good news. That's the great irony of it all. They don't allow us to report on the good things either, or at least they'd like to stop it. The reason they were making such efforts was due to the work of Arthur Green and other journalists who were willing to cover the disorder and issues on Edmonton transit system. Rest assured, the powers that be would have preferred to just ignore the issue if they could. Free and unfettered media holds governments accountable. They bring issues into the living rooms of citizens who wouldn't have been able to see what's going on otherwise. I mean, most people never realized the mayhem happening in transit until they saw the images and saw the stories about it in the media. Then they demanded politicians do something about it. Media is financially embattled right now by changing times and politically threatened by authoritarian politicians and bureaucrats. We don't and won't give up easily. If the pressures continue as they have, though, we're going to lose more access to unfiltered information and news, and our entire democracy could then be threatened. So be sure to speak up loudly when arrogant and dim-witted bureaucrats, such as those at the ETS, try to block free media, because if they get away with it, we all suffer from it.